Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. I walked into a nightmare as a cop. What I saw shocked me before we dive in. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft, deceptive glow over the city as I pulled my cruiser up to the curb of a quiet suburban street. The call had come in as a domestic disturbance, but the details were sketchy. The dispatcher's voice tinged with an urgency that made my stomach churn. I am a policewoman, and I've seen my share of human depravity, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. I approached the house, its facade as unrechargeable as any other on the block, yet behind those walls something dark was unfolding. The front door was ajar, a silent invitation into chaos. My hand rested on my holster as I stepped inside, the air thick with tension and the faint, unsettling sound of whimpering. The living room was empty, but the sounds grew louder, more desperate, as I moved through the house. My heart pounded in my ***T, not just from the adrenaline but from a growing sense of dread. The noises led me upstairs to a bedroom where the door was slightly open. I pushed it gently, the scene inside freezing me in my tracks. There she was, the woman, her face a mask of resignation and something else I couldn't quite place beside her. On the bed was their family dog, looking confused and out of place, and her husband, standing there. His eyes not on her but on the act, his expression one of twisted satisfaction. I stood there, my badge and gun, suddenly feeling like inadequate tools against the horror. Before me, the room was silent, except for the soft rhythmic sounds that filled the space with a perverse normalcy. What could drive a man to such an act? What had led this woman to this moment of degradation? These questions swirled in my mind, mingling with the shock and the duty to act. But as I took a step forward, my presence still unnoticed, I knew this was just the beginning of a story, far more complex and disturbing than a simple domestic call. I cleared my throat, the sound slicing through the thick, oppressive air of the bedroom. The husband's head snapped towards me, his eyes wide with shock, then narrowing with defiance. The woman, however, seemed to barely register my presence, her gaze distant, lost in some internal abyss. Police. I announced, my voice firm, but betraying a hint of the horror. I felt step away from her. The husband hesitated, his jaw clenching, but he complied, moving back with a slow, deliberate step. The dog, sensing the change in atmosphere, whimpered and scurried off the bed, tail between its legs. I approached the woman, my training kicking in, though my mind was reeling. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Yes. Though the answer was painfully obvious, she didn't respond immediately, her eyes finally meeting mine, filled with a cocktail of emotions, shame, fear, and a flicker of relief. Her voice was barely a whisper when she finally spoke. "Tu didn't want this." The husband's voice cut through, sharp and defensive. "She's lying, she wanted it. It was her idea." I turned to him, my expression hardening. "We'll sort this out at the station. You're coming with me." As I cuffed him, my mind raced with the implications of what I'd just witnessed. This wasn't just a domestic disturbance. It was a scene from a nightmare, one that hinted at deeper, darker layers beneath the surface of this seemingly normal suburban life. The woman wrapped a robe around herself, her movements mechanical. "I need to get dressed," she said, her voice steadier. Now, perhaps fueled by the realization that this ordeal might finally be over. I nodded, giving her some privacy while keeping an eye on her husband. My radio crackled and I reported back to dispatch, my words clipped professional, even as my thoughts were anything but. As we prepared to leave, I noticed the photographs on the walls. Family pictures, smiling faces, a stark contrast to the scene. I had just interrupted what had gone so terribly wrong in this house. The answers weren't immediate, but the seeds of a much larger, more intricate story were already sprouting. In my mind, this was just the beginning. I knew there would be interviews, investigations, and perhaps, if justice prevailed, some semblance of healing. But for now, all I could do was escort them out, the weight of their secrets and the burden of my duty pressing down on me as we stepped into the deceptive light of the morning. As we left the house, the morning air felt like a cold slap against my face, a stark reminder of the reality I had just stepped into. The husband, now cuffed and subdued, walked ahead of me, his back rigid with defiance. The woman followed her steps hesitant, her eyes scanning the neighborhood as if seeing it for the first time through a lens of betrayal and fear. At the station, the atmosphere was charged with a different kind of tension. The precinct was bustling, but there was an undercurrent of curiosity and discomfort among my colleagues. As they caught wind of the case, I led the husband to an interrogation room, his silence now as loud as his earlier protests. The woman whom I learned was named Emma was taken to a separate room for her statement. Her story unfolded in fragments, each piece more disturbing than the last. She spoke of coercion, of psychological manipulation, and of a marriage that had turned into a prison. Her husband, Charlie, had slowly isolated her from friends and family, his control escalating from emotional to physical, culminating in the scene I had witnessed. I thought if I complied he'd stop. Emma whispered, her voice breaking, but it just got worse. He said it was to prove my loyalty, my love for him. Her words painted a picture of a man who had twisted love into something grotesque, using their pet as an instrument of his perversion. The complexity of their relationship was not just about infidelity, but about power, control, and the degradation of one's spirit. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Charlie's demeanor shifted. Gone was the shock. Now there was a cold calculation in his eyes. He maintained his innocence, claiming it was consensual, a mutual exploration of boundaries. His narrative was slick, rehearsed, and devoid of any remorse. I'm the victim here. He insisted, his voice smooth, but his eyes betraying a flicker of something darker. She's trying to ruin me because I wanted to leave her. The investigation deepened. We delved into their digital footprints, financial records, and spoke to neighbors, uncovering a pattern of behavior that painted Charlie not just as a controlling husband, but as a man with a history of manipulation and possible abuse in past relationships. The tension escalated when we discovered a hidden camera in their bedroom, set up by Charlie, capturing not just the incident but several others, each more degrading than the last. This wasn't just about proving Emma's story. It was about exposing a pattern of abuse that had been meticulously planned. As the evidence mounted, so did the personal stakes for me. I found myself drawn into Emma's ordeal, her pain resonating with a case from my past that I had never fully resolved, a case where justice had slipped through my fingers, leaving me with a haunting sense of failure. This time I was determined not to let that happen again. The community's reaction was mixed. Some neighbors were shocked, others whispered about the signs they had missed or ignored. The case became a local sensation, with media trucks parked outside the station, each reporter eager for a piece of the scandal. Amidst this, I had to navigate the legal complexities, the emotional toll on Emma, and my own resurfacing trauma. The pressure was immense, not just to solve the case, but to ensure Emma's safety and mental health. We arranged for her to stay in a secure location away from prying eyes and potential threats from Charlie's supporters or his own retaliation. The investigation wasn't just about proving Charlie's guilt. It was about understanding the depth of human darkness, the lengths one would go to exert control, and the resilience of those who suffer under such tyranny. Every step forward in the case brought new challenges, from legal hurdles to the emotional warfare waged by Charlie's defense. As I pieced together the puzzle, I realized this was more than just a case of infidelity. It was a battle for Emma's freedom, her sanity, and perhaps a chance for her to reclaim her life from the shadows of her past. The station was a hive of activity, but the air was thick with the weight of the case. I stood outside the interrogation room, my mind racing with the implications of what we had uncovered. Sta's story, now supported by the chilling evidence from Charlie's hidden camera, painted a picture of systematic abuse far beyond what I had initially witnessed. I entered the room where Emma sat, her eyes hollow. Yet there was a spark of defiance, now a glimmer of hope that justice might be served. Emma, I began, my voice soft. We found the videos. We're going to make sure Charlie faces consequences for what he's done. She nodded, her lips trembling. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I was so scared he'd never stop. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. We're going to need you to be strong. "Emma, the trial will be tough, but we're here to support you every step of the way." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from the DA's office. They wanted to meet immediately. I excused myself, leaving Emma with a counselor, and made my way to the DA's office. My steps heavy with the gravity of the situation. The DA, a seasoned woman with eyes that had seen too much, greeted me with a nod. "Officer, this case, it's unlike anything we've seen. We need to ensure every piece of evidence is airtight. Charlie defense is already spinning a narrative of consent and mutual exploration." I felt my jaw clench. There was no consent. Those videos, the psychological manipulation, the isolation. It's all there. She sighed, her gaze distant. "We know. But public perception, media scrutiny, it's all going to play a part. We need to prepare Emma for what's coming, and you, officer, you're not just a witness. You're now a key player in this. Your testimony could sway the jury." The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just about the evidence. It was about storytelling, about framing the narrative in a way that would resonate with a jury. I thought of the case from my past, the one that still haunted me, and I knew I couldn't let history repeat itself. Back at the station, I found Charlie in his cell. His demeanor now one of calculated calm. He looked up as I approached, a smirk playing on his lips. "You think you've got me, don't you? But remember, everyone has their secrets, officer." His words were like ice down my spine. I knew he was trying to unsettle me, to find a crack in our case. "Your secrets are out, Charlie," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "And they're not just yours anymore." The tension was palpable as I returned to my desk, the weight of the case pressing down. I reviewed the files, the videos, every piece of evidence we had. My mind was a whirlwind of strategy of how to present this horror in a way that would ensure justice for Emma. As the day wore on, the station buzzed with updates. The media was relentless, and I could see the strain on Emma's face whenever she had to face another camera. I arranged for her to have a private moment away from the chaos to gather her thoughts. "Emma," I said, sitting beside her in a quiet room. "We're going to get through this, but I need you to know you're not alone. We're all here for you." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if he gets away with it? What if no one believes me?" I took her hand, feeling the cold fear in her grip. "They will believe you, Emma, because the real truth is undeniable. We'll make sure of it." The pre-climactic tension was building, not just in the courtroom where justice would be sought, but within me. This case was more than a duty. It was a personal crusade against the darkness I had seen too often as I prepared for the trial. I knew this was the moment where everything would converge: the evidence, the testimonies, and the battle for Emma's freedom. The climax was approaching, and with it the potential for redemption or further despair. The courtroom was a crucible, the air heavy with anticipation and the weight of countless eyes upon us. Emma sat beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her face pale but resolute. Today was the day we would lay bare the truth, the day Charlie would face the consequences of his actions. The judge entered, and the room fell into a hush. The jury, a panel of 11, looked on with expressions ranging from curiosity to discomfort. I could feel the tension, the unspoken questions about what they would hear, see, and ultimately decide. Charlie, defense attorney, began painting a picture of a misunderstood man, a victim of a scorned wife's revenge. His words were smooth, designed to sow doubt, to twist the narrative into something palatable, something that could be dismissed as a marital spat. Gone too far. Then it was our turn. The DA called Emma to the stand. She walked up, her steps echoing in the silent room. Her voice when she spoke was steady, a testament to her newfound strength. "I was trapped," she said, her eyes fixed on the jury. "He isolated me, controlled every aspect of my life. What you saw, what was recorded, that was not consent. That was survival." The videos were played, each frame a testament to the horror she endured. The room was silent, save for the soft mechanical whir of the projector. The images were stark, undeniable, and as they played, I watched the jury faces harden, their initial skepticism giving way to revulsion. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, recounting the moment I entered that bedroom, the scene that would haunt me forever. My voice was firm, but inside I was battling my own demons, the echoes of past failures. "Officer, what did you see when you entered the room?" the DA asked. I described the scene, the dog, Emma's expression, and Charlie chilling satisfaction. It was clear, I said, that this was not a mutual act. It was coercion, manipulation, and abuse. Charlie, attorney, tried to discredit me to find a chink in my armor. "Isn't it true, officer, that you have a history of personal involvement in cases, perhaps clouding your judgment?" I looked him straight in the eye. "My involvement stems from a commitment to justice, not personal vendettas. What I saw was undeniable abuse, and my duty is to the truth." The cross-examination was intense, but I held firm, my resolve unshaven. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies poignant. As the defense rested, the room seemed to breathe, a collective sigh, the weight of the truth settling in. The jury retired to deliberate, and we waited the minutes, stretching into hours. Emma's hand found mine, squeezing with a mix of fear and hope. When the jury returned, the room was electric. With tension, the foreman stood, his face unreadable. "We, the jury, find the defendant Charlie guilty on all counts of sexual assault, coercion, and psychological abuse." The verdict hit like a wave relief, flooding through me through Emma. Charlie's face contorted, his mask of calm. Slipping into rage, he was led away, his freedom stripped, his control shattered. Outside the courtroom, Emma turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You gave me back my life." I nodded, feeling a release, a lifting of the burden I had carried from my past. "We did this together, Emma. You were incredibly brave." As we walked out of the courthouse, the media frenzy was a blur around us. But in that moment it was just Emma and me, three souls who had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. The case was closed, but the journey for Emma was just beginning. A journey towards healing, towards reclaiming her identity, her dignity. And for me it was a moment of redemption, a step towards closing the chapter of my past. Knowing that this time justice had not just been served, it had been fought for tooth and nail. The climax had passed, but the echoes of this battle would resonate, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit against the darkest of human natures. The days following the trial were a blur of media coverage, public reactions, and the quiet personal aftermath of a battle fought and won. Emma, now free from the immediate threat of Charlie control, began the slow process of rebuilding her life. The verdict had been a public declaration of her truth, but the journey to heal from the scars left by her ordeal was just beginning. I watched from a distance as she navigated through the storm of attention, her steps tentative but growing stronger with each passing day. The community, once a backdrop to her silent suffering, now rallied around her, offering support in ways both big and small. For me, the case had been more than a professional obligation. It was a personal redemption. The echoes of my past failure had haunted me, but now, with Charlie behind bars, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years yet. The victory was bittersweet. The darkness I had seen in that bedroom would never fully leave me, but perhaps it would serve as a reminder of why I chose this path, why I wear this badge. One evening, as the city lights began to twinkle, I found myself at a small cafe, a place where Emma and I had agreed to meet. It wasn't about the case anymore. It was about three people who had shared a profound, harrowing experience, finding solace in the aftermath. Emma arrived, her face softer, the lines of fear less pronounced. We sat, and for a moment there was silence, a comfortable space where words were unnecessary. "Thank you for everything," she said, her gratitude evident in her eyes. "Thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel.